Alrighty folks, welcome along to the second episode of Late Night with Made the Parade. I just want to take a moment to say thank you to everybody who tuned in for the first episode. The feedback that we got for that one was absolutely fantastic. A big thank you again to all of the guests who took part in that, and delighted to be back for another episode. So we have a great episode lined up for you tonight. We have Rab Williamson from the Dalaradia, a cultural and historical group, coming on talking about their latest film. We also have Darren Ferguson, the CEO of Beyond Skin, talking about his organisation connecting with local bands. And then we also have Davy Thompson on from the Shagger Road Defenders, talking about some of the work that they've got involved in terms of partnering with Beyond Skin as well. We also have a video that's been given to us from the Churchill, who were supposed to be here tonight but can't unfortunately be with us, and that's us. Alright, so sit back, relax and enjoy the latest episode of Late Night with Made the Parade. So one of the most intriguing community films that I've come across recently was called Quest for Dalaradia, and I'm joined by Rab Williamson from the Dalaradia Cultural and Historical Group to talk about why they developed this film. So let's welcome to Late Night with Made the Parade, Rab Williamson. Rab, welcome along.
Thank you, Glenn. I must say I enjoyed your first show. It was fantastic and good to see.
Brilliant, thanks very much, appreciate it. So Rod, tell us a wee bit about this film you've developed. It's got a kind of unique perspective on sort of the history of Ulster. So where did you get involved with this kind of storyline in the first place?
Well, I guess myself and some friends have always been interested in local history. Quest for Dalaradia is the film that we've just made. And probably the local part of it came about 15, 20 years ago. Some of us had been reading history by Dr. Ian Adamson. At a later stage, we actually met him and found that he was a wealth of information, that he really did have like an after dinner speaker's gift. He could talk for hours. And once we met him, the focus of our group that we had formed, Dalaradia, we had been talking about different avenues and different things to do. And we came up with this idea maybe of an Ulster Scots group, but it very quickly became into Ulster history. And we very quickly discovered that the very land and the very territories that we were living in had a whole history going back thousands of years that was all documented and written down, but no one had ever told us. And probably the great thing for me, when you were talking about starting this and about talking to people from the PEL community, a lot of people say it's old history, they'll not be interested. But it was actually the opposite. The more that we spoke to people about their local history, they were actually really, really keen to learn. And really what we started researching then was that we live basically in County Antrim, and thousands of years ago, maybe as 8 to 10,000 years ago, in Mount Sandal in Coleraine was the first people that ever lived in Ireland, long before the Gaels. And the DNA and research there is the oldest settlement perhaps in Western Europe. And then we found, well, if there's people living here so many thousands of years ago, what language did they speak and who were they and what were their customs and traditions? And out of that then came this whole local history where we came up with a list of kings of Dalaradia, of famous battles that they'd fought, of an old language called Brittany, that the first map of the British Isles was called Isles of the Brittany. Right. And there was 16 rivers in Northern Ireland listed in that map by a guy called Ptolemy, one of Caesar's great generals and a Greek philosopher. He actually invented latitude and longitude that we still use today. So a lot of this information had been written down and recorded, but we knew nothing about it. Our kids knew nothing about it. And we started basically teaching ourselves with the help of Ian Adamson, who was a great person for opening doors and getting us to meet people that we would never ever have met. As regards the film, we got an offer of a lovely girl called Catherine came in from Tides Training and offered us to do a project. And we initially said, no, we're really busy and we don't have time and we've lots of going on. And like many working class groups, our capacity isn't great about filling in forms and getting grants and getting funding. So we made an agreement that Catherine would do all the paperwork and keep us right that way, and we would deliver the goods. And we had a time period of 3 months from day one until actually screening the film.
Right, okay.
So we basically spent those 3 months writing the script and then tearing the script up and throwing it in the bin.
Okay.
Basically, the film company said your idea of making a historical film might be quite good, but it could be a little bit boring. And they says, listen, the story here is actually a group of working class guys from the PL community searching for their history that has never ever been told for them. And rather than have a script, let's just see what words comes out of their mouths and let's go with that. But at the same time, tell that historical tale of Dalaradia, of the old kings of Ulster and the history of Ulster going back many thousands of years. So rather like so many groups start sort of in the middle of the book or over the past 50 or 100 years, let's go right back to the beginning and tell that story from day one.
So you've created this film, you've delved into a wee bit more of history that some people may not have heard about. You know, obviously I've done a wee bit of reading around the subject myself, you know, in terms of the Cruton and the idea of the Britannia and so on. But tell us a wee bit about what is it you actually hope to achieve from creating this film?
Well, we wanted to do numerous things, you know. Our group and many groups that we work with, they really are involved in culture and arts and heritage. They write books, they make plays, they make films, and there is this narrative out there that we don't do that, we don't engage in that. So we wanted to counteract that now for one. As the actual film itself, there's a sort of a binary history that we have. Either you're a planter or a Gael, and there's nothing else. You know, either you're one tribe or another tribe, and we found that story and that narrative to be very divisive, and not to be conducive to creating peace in this country. So we had a small hope that by making something that the theme of it was common identity, that, you know, this island belongs to us all. The island hasn't existed on its own from time. The Isles of the Britannia, the British Isles, have always been a collective. And we wanted to say, you know, let's have a look at our history with fresh eyes. Let's see that this history can be shared by everybody. Let's cut through some of the narratives of one tribe or another tribe. And let's promote a history that really is inclusive and that is new and fresh and appealing. And hopefully if you can agree and if you can cut through that the rumours and the half history, you know, a lot of our guys and a lot of other people, we learn our history in a pub over a pint of beer on Facebook. Let's go back to the source, you know, let's see it. So when you put fresh eyes on it and open up and have a look at this, really by doing that, if you understand that you have a shared past. So by sharing your past, hopefully you can share a future. And that's a benefit to everybody in Northern Ireland.
How did some of the guys that you were talking about who were taking part in not just the film, but in terms of being involved with the work of the group, how did they respond to this kind of historical discovery? What kind of was going on for them?
Well, I just found it absolutely amazing that people that had lived in previous years, I mean, kings of Dalaradia came from their territory. They found it amazing that the Battle of Crew Hill and Lisburn was such a decisive battle in our history that they didn't even know about it. We read then about the Battle of Mora, perhaps the greatest battle ever fought in Ireland, and they had never heard tell of it. And then there's a sort of a ripple effect that then takes you into the works of Sir Samuel Ferguson and some of the great poets and some of the great historians, that really, it's almost like an academic suppression that this information isn't put out there. So, as I said earlier, it really did bite. You know, people really did get interested, and just they then started asking themselves, well, why did I not know this, and why is it not taught in my schools, and that type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. Whenever I seen the film, I was like kind of going, for me, what it done was, I seen it really as a conversation starter.
Absolutely.
As in, let's have a chat about this, you know, and sort of go, well, yeah, obviously there's a history that goes beyond, you know, 300, 600, 1,000 years ago. What actually is that? What does it look like? And what do we know about that? And what can that actually do to enrich our own view of our past? How would you say that it's had an impact on you then, you discovering this stuff?
Well, it's made myself and people that we work with and share with from all sections of the community. It's made us look at things, as I said previously, with fresh eyes. It's made us more confident in who we are and what our heritage is and what our identity is. And as we find ways of exploring that, a lot of people within the PEL community, they feel trapped. All people ever want to talk about is the Troubles in 1690, and you're almost pigeonholed and kept in that box and don't say anything. So for us, it was a breath of fresh air that, you know what, we've a whole history, we've thousands of years of people and events and cultures and places, and let's have a look at that and let's share it. And the people then that started to share that it raised their own capacity, it raised their own self-confidence. So a lot of the people in Dalaradia have been working in cultural and arts and heritage for about 15, 16 years, but they always did it under the radar and they always had good results. I think with this film, it sort of allowed them to almost go public and be confident enough to say it out loud and to say it on film. Remarks that we got in the Strand Cinema, there was 200 people coming out the door, and just as you said there, the whole end game of the film was, let's have a conversation. Everybody was saying the same thing, let's talk about this, why do we not know about this, where can we see the film, would you come to us in Crumlin and show the film, would you come to us in Newtownards and see the film, would you show it to our group, or can we, so it really has started a whole debate, the whole dialogue that previously wasn't there.
So you mentioned a few things there in regards to that it was first shown at the Strand Cinema here in East Belfast. Yes. Where else can people see it? Because you've mentioned about people asking to come and see it.
So we have a Facebook page called Dalaradia. So you can either go onto Facebook or contact us in the White House in Newton Abbey. We have taken bookings already for Newtownards, for Ballymena, Coleraine, I think. We're looking to take it down to Dublin. So we have about 6 itineraries coming up for bookings, but we're happy to either bring people to us or we will travel and show it to you at your venue. And that's an offer open to everyone from whatever section of the community that you come from. Let's have this conversation.
Rob, thanks very much for sharing that.
Thank you for having me.
Much appreciated. So we've heard us talking a wee bit about the film. I think we should probably give you a wee bit of a sneak preview. So here's a clip from the quest for Dalaradia.
We never learnt our history in school. You know, you learnt about Germany or something like that, or the Russians. We never knew about your own history. And it was just through, when Rob started up the wee group with Ian and Helen, everything just progressed and we've been everywhere.
It's education, and it's not being taught in schools.
Met loads of people I never thought I would meet. I was beside the Irish president and loads of people that I wouldn't associate with. I'd stand beside them. My grandchildren, they know nothing about their history. My daughter knows nothing about her history because they haven't been taught in school.
You have to keep an open mind, so you do. You know, it's about having respect at the end of the day, you know, for all our cultures, all our heritages.
The first question we have to answer is, what is Dalaradia? Dalaradia is an ancient Ulster kingdom that takes its name from a 3rd century king of Ulster. As Ian Adamson explains, the territory stretched from Lough Neagh northwards to the sea between the mouths of the Bush and Bann, and as far south as Belfast. It included such present-day towns as Coleraine, Larne and Carrickfergus. In other words, Dalaradia corresponded to most of County Antrim, except for the area around the Glens. The Dalaradians were the most important dynasty among the Cruthan. Most of the people who came together to form the Dalaradia historical group discovered that they were actually living in the territory of this ancient Ulster kingdom. Making that initial connection between the landscape of today and the landscape of ancient Dalaradia was to set them on a fascinating journey of discovery that was to give them a totally new perspective on their history. This film follows the journey taken by the Dalaradian historical group in their quest for the Dalaradian kings. That journey began when they discovered Ian Adamson's book, Dalaradia, Kingdom of the Cruthan, published in 1998, the same year as the Good Friday or Belfast Agreement was signed. The broader perspective they found there led them to explore the ancient history of Ulster, and in particular, the story of Dalaradia. In this book, Adamson encourages the people of Northern Ireland to focus on what he calls the commonality of their historical and cultural heritage, and to focus on a history that unites them rather than one that drives them apart. That story begins here on Crew Hill, and I've come up here this morning to talk to Martin Snodden.
I'm delighted to be here at this magnificent site, this Crew Hill site with this inauguration stone for those kings of Ulster that inhabited this land at that particular time. So we're starting here, we're starting on a journey, taking different sites as we go along to develop that understanding of the common identity that rests or begins here.
An organisation that I've been privileged to work with over the years has been Beyond Skin, and one of the few organisations that have engaged effectively with the community and with bands specifically. I'm delighted to have Darren Ferguson on the show with me, but before we talk to Darren, let's get a wee bit of a flavour of the work that Beyond Skin has done with the community.
Okay, ready.
Let's go!
Darren, welcome along to Late Night with me, the Parade. Great to have you on.
Thanks for the invite.
Not a problem at all. Darren, maybe be a good place for us to start is just to give us a brief overview of what Beyond Skin is and what it's all about.
Well, Beyond Skin, we're a registered charity and we're approaching our 19th year. I think I've a grey hair for every day along that time. And it's enabling the arts in peace building, good relations, but in a very unique way. So as well as bringing communities together, we're always kind of pushing the creative boundaries as well, and doing really collaborative projects with different communities. So and a lot of people we meet along the way kind of shapes what we do as an organisation. So it's very participatory led as an organisation.
Brilliant. So as I was saying in the introduction, you're one of the few organisations that I'm aware of that's actively sought to engage specifically with the Loyalist marching bands. What motivated you to do that? Because that's not something, that's ground that some people fear to tread on.
I suppose, well, in a selfish way, I'm a musician. I love music. So, anything around music, it draws me in. So there's probably a bit of that as well. But I think, we've been very a realist as an organisation as well, and looking at better ways of doing stuff. And for us, it's having everybody as part of the conversation regarding moving forward, as a shared community as well, and that we can learn about each other. And I just see, to kind of isolate or not involve what is, the largest working class music community probably in Europe, would not make any sense at all. With the musicianship there and experience, and then the possibilities of collaboration with different artists around the world, So I suppose it was looking at it from various angles of bringing people into the conversation, which regarding kind of good relations stuff, they're not really included or invited as much as I would like. So for us, it's taking those bold steps, but there's the political sensitivities around the marching bands, and we have put a lot of councils in the cold sweat even mentioning that we're going to be working with them. So, which sends out a signal as well. If that makes people nervous, then it's stuff we should be engaged in. Not the comfortable stuff.
Yeah.
It's stuff which does make people nervous, and the creative output which has come out it's been amazing over the years as well. It's been very enjoyable.
So where did it actually start? You obviously, you had this idea, listen, there's a whole pile of musicians out there that are involved in these marching bands. Where did you actually start engaging with them, and what did that look like?
I suppose our first inroad was with the Shankill Road Defenders. It was through a shared project as well with another organisation. And I think, we've always been very honest and transparent and candid from the word go. And I suppose like any project, it's the welfare of the people involved comes first. So we had very honest conversations with the Shankill Road guys about what we expected from them and the sensitivities out there. And there was no elephants in the room. We kind of let it all out and work through stuff together. And so they were the first ones that really stepped out and says, no, we're going to get involved and work with musicians from Kurdistan and Ghana and India and Jamaica and so on, and kind of pushed things or creative things that way. And then I suppose Culture Night was a big milestone, which I still wake up at night with a smile about all aspects of what happened there.
Yeah, so talk to me a wee bit about that, because it's almost like beyond skin folklore, that kind of thing. That's the story.
Yes.
So Culture Night's obviously this big, massive event that takes place in Belfast every year. Yep. And you noticed that there was a particular grouping of people who never seemed to be there. Is that?
Yeah, well, it's Culture Night, which is what it is in the tin. You have people from all different cultures out celebrating. Over 200 events in theatres and barber shops everywhere. There's creative music going on, but there seemed to be an absence of the marching bands from Loyalist communities, especially being there in full uniform. So at the time, the director of Culture Night, when I mentioned it to him, he did swear over the phone in a good way of this is brilliant, and was very supportive of it. City Council, and we had some conversations with PSNI, were a bit more nervous.
Right.
And I suppose with Davies here in the studio with us, it was having an honest conversation with the band, saying, they're aware of it. We all know the sensitivities of bringing a band in full uniform to a public space, and we talked about how we would manage that as well, and the fact that people would probably dislike them before they even played a note. Look, we would have been really real, because they would see the name of the band on the drums and the uniforms and so on, and also we can really promote that event through culture night as much as we wanted to, because it would give people a heads up that they're coming down. It might attract, some negative people coming down. So, we talked about it, and I don't know who, I'll claim it was my idea, but I think it was somebody's idea, had a light bulb moment when he says, well, let's get Carwin, the Kurdish guy that was working with the guys, let's get him to sing in Kurdish Arabic at the very start with the lead tip. Because that would just throw people off balance, totally. So we thought that was a great idea. So we kind of planned it out of how we would challenge the audience and make that work. And I suppose the agreement, we had, because everybody was so nervous at this, and we had to really fight to get the guys there in full uniform as well, because it's part of their culture, So the agreement was the bus would drive right up to the stretch tent at the Arts College at the time. They would get off and perform. They were seated down with music stands like an orchestra, but they weren't allowed outside the parameters of that stretch tent in their full uniform. That was the agreement, So of course the bus arrived that night, and a lot of the guys arrived classed themselves because they were really nervous, and they had a few drinks to settle the nerves, but they needed to go to the toilet. And so I remember saying to some guys, you cannot leave this tent. Right. Like, you cannot leave this tent. I agreed with the council and so on. Like, you're not holding it in. Oh, we really need to go there, really need to go. And I was going, oh my God. That's like, no, well, turn your jackets inside out and take off your hats and go to the Arts College, but be discreet, be discreet. So it was that comedy moment of that nerves, and it was amazing because once they started, they had a huge audience there, a lot of people probably never exposed to that as well. And kids are brilliant because, children just change the atmosphere, and, children started dancing and so on. And it was like, I think 10 minutes in we knew this is amazing. Like, why can't it be like this anytime these bands are out? Because it was such a family atmosphere. And I was in the audience, and I could hear people going, oh, they're really good, aren't they? They're really good. So I think people seen the musicianship there, and they were surprised at that. And they seen the collaborative stuff going on with the diversity of people I had there. And I mean, it was a tremendous success, and then people applauded afterward. But leading up to it, we had to navigate through all the challenges and sensitivities and really push things. And for me, that was a big moment of, just sticking with the guys, working closely together. Was elements of comedy gold in there as well, which helps, and it came off really well, and it can be done. It can be done.
What I think that intrigues me about what you've just said is that with regards to the being in uniform, and I know that kind of maybe can spark off certain things for people, but the idea of culture night, everybody else potentially wearing either national dress or other types of dress, their own type of thing, and that's kind of all right, but a band uniform, oh God.
I know, and that's something which needs to be challenged. You would never say to somebody, oh, you can't wear your sari or our traditional dress. I mean, that would not go down well at all, and people would lose their jobs for saying something like that. Yet, with the loyalist community, we've found that the language used sometimes, I just feel it's very inappropriate and disrespectful, because you wouldn't say that to other cultures as well. And of course it is a sensitive issue, and we're not being stupid, we know that. And I think Culture Night is a good example when it's managed well, and expectations are fair, and we're having really honest discussions. But if it's part of somebody's culture, there's got to be ways of making sure that they feel safe, they can promote their culture in a safe way, and take pride in that as well. And we'll probably talk a wee bit about Sri Lanka, but Davey from the Shadow Defenders, when we took Davey out to Sri Lanka, for me that was such an amazing moment, because I'm quite emotional as well, because I'm a musician, and I've seen a guy who wherever he went with his flute, people wanted him to play. People got excited about it, the kids got excited about it, and again, he wasn't defending what he did as a musician, he was being invited everywhere to play as a musician, and that was, it's a shame that happens in a different country, and it's not as welcoming here, but I think that was a good example of people just seeing somebody from a different culture who mastered their instrument really well, and people just wanted him to play. It was like the Pied Piper.
Right, okay.
Very good. And that's, again, that's working outside Northern Ireland in different contexts, So it's nice for me to see another musician really letting loose, no politics, and just enjoying himself and playing as a musician. Like, that's tremendous, you know.
Definitely. Well, I think we might actually have a clip of the band at Culture Night, so we'll maybe switch to that now,
Yes.
and let's have a wee look at that. All right, so here you go. Here's a clip from Culture Night. Get on. Brilliant, so great wee clip there, happy days. And Darren, talk to us a wee bit more about some of the other projects that you've been able to involve bands with, because you've mentioned obviously having, you know, the Saga Road Defenders involved in Culture Night, and a couple of other collaboration-based projects that they were involved in. What else have you done with the bands?
We've done quite a lot of stuff over the years with different bands, and again working with a diversity of different communities. At the minute we're really heavily involved on helping musicians who have come to our shores and artists who are seeking asylum. And you know, again, a lot are coming from Afghanistan as well, where music is banned, you know. So there's some musician empathy there and solidarity, you know. And even in Bangor we started a project there with some guys from Iraq who have professional filmmakers who are working with some local bands there, making a documentary. And again, I think, you know, both felt their cultures was being misrepresented in the kind of public eye. And, you know, we have professionals who, because their brand is an asylum seeker, they feel that they, you know, they're not accurately being portrayed about who they are and their skills. And then when we had a cup of coffee with some of the guys from the marching band, they were feeling exactly the same way.
Yeah.
You know, they feel the same at their
I was just
cultures.
about to say that, you know.
Yeah, their culture's been, so it was really like, well, you've got something common before
Yeah.
you start, because you both feel that people have a lack of awareness about your culture.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that's got to be addressed. And migration and loyalism are two of the most sensitive subjects at the minute.
Yeah.
You know, that are again breaking councils into cold sweats about how they manage this. So to stick the two together, you know, is a risk that we're happy to take. And we know it'll come out good, because, you know, there's trust and relationships there. And I think with the marching bands and the projects we've done, you know, nothing happens without trust. And we've really worked hard to ensure the bands, that the stuff we engage them in, we're not putting them in a place where they're going to be uncomfortable or set up as a publicity stunt or anything like that. It's just making sure that they're represented well, and that happens. So again, a lot of projects we've done is working with beatboxers and Ballymacarrat Defenders, which is a guy from Sri Lanka as well. And there has been odds and ends of events where we've had members of the marching bands involved in different projects. So we are in UNESCO City of Music, and you know, there's going to be more efforts now to include, especially again, working class musicians, because a flautist from the Ulster Orchestra would, you know, people pay to see that person, and they're kind of held up on high, as they should be, because they're a professional person who's mastered their instrument. But so should somebody from a marching band who can play the flute as well, has mastered that. So there is a bit of a class thing going on which needs to be addressed as well.
And I think, as you say, when people start to engage with the bands, flute bands, accordion bands, pipe bands, they realise just the quality of musicianship that exists there. You mentioned UNESCO. I think actually the first event that took place in Belfast as UNESCO was the Miller Memorial's booklet launch. It was the very first event after we were announced as a UNESCO City of Music and stuff. So I think it's again, that probably flew under the radar as well, because we were coming out of COVID and stuff, you know. It was a very tightly managed event. I remember I was at that, you know, and again, another band engaging with a wider art space, you know, so not just doing the event, but actually creating a publication that gives people an insight as to where they've come from. How would you say your work with the Loyalist Marching Bands has enriched your organisation?
It's been really fruitful, but I have to be honest as well. We've regularly took it in the neck from people who probably see loyalism as a problem. You know, and for an organisation that's really heavily involved in working with people from ethnic minorities and people seeking asylum, refugee communities and so on, it is quite rare that there's a crossover, that we're working also in parallel and in tandem with musicians within the Loyalist community. So, and people have kind of judged us for that in some ways, but for us, it's been really fruitful. I have to say, you know, some of our best moments as an organisation in the almost 19 years, and the stories I tell more frequently are the projects we've done in collaboration with the Loyalist bands, like the Culture Night story. I mean, it's just those are really powerful stories, which you know, which has a legacy as well. And again, the relationships we have, even with yourself and so on, has been really strong out of that. You know, so I think it's gone in our stead, definitely as an organisation. I'm very proud of our track record. We have really struggled at times because we have been really, you know, tiptoeing through the politics of it. But you know, nothing changes without risk, and we're quite ready to take a risk. And it is those things of, you know, sticking somebody with a beatboxer or, you know, messing about with the music a wee bit. You know, it's a playful way of doing things. And Marching Metal was amazing success. You know, sticking rock musicians and yourself and Gordon as flautists from marching bands, you know, together. So sometimes even that playful way of involving bands is nice in that creative way.
But it's actually spawned other events. In the first episode that we did here, we had the Gertrude Star on, and they were talking about their Faith's Infusion event that they've done, and they actually quoted Marching Metal as one of the inspirations behind them getting involved and actually trying to do something different. It kind of inspired them, and it's interesting. I think they're actually up for the award.
Oh no way!
So they're up for the award for with that. So hopefully, by the time our episode in January goes out, they might have got the news that they might have won that. Who knows? But again, you know, indirectly, work of your organisation influencing other people to engage, and you know what, there's miles in this, you know what
there
I mean?
is, and it's again, there's sometimes in a playful way poking at the status quo. And you know, again, we did an event there with all the bands in the Black Box a number of years ago there. We had a guy from Colombia and some female singers there as well, because it is a very male dominated space, although you have female musicians in the band community. And this guy came up at the end and says, "It's amazing what you've just done there tonight." And I went, "What? Take musicians in the music venue?" You know? And he kind of looked me a blank stare, and I thought, you know, I know what he was trying to say, but in a playful way, I was saying, this shouldn't be a rare thing of musicians in those spaces. You know, but it's seen as that, it's seen as a novelty or something. So I think we need to look at our programming regarding our arts theatres and arts spaces and venues, and see how they're programming those spaces and invite bands and that musicianship into those spaces, because it's not happening as much as it should. And for people who are coming here regarding tourists, it's probably the only way, unless you happen to be out in the street by sheer chance, it's the only way you're going to be exposed to that culture. And so it's a good way of championing what we have on our shores here, which is very unique compared to the rest of the world.
Well, Darren, I want to say thank you, first and foremost, not just for coming on the show, but for taking the risk to engage with bands, because I think it, you know, I've personally benefited from that there, and I know other bands that have engaged with Beyond Skin have really benefited from you saying, listen, you know what, I see these people as musicians, and being able to see beyond what, you know, the beyond the uniform, beyond whatever, and see that there's music and there's people behind that, and for building good relationships with the community to engage with them, because I think that's key, is build a relationship, let's have a conversation, and let's see where this can go. So I commend you for the work that you've done, man. Thanks very much.
Thanks for the invite again, appreciate it.
No worries, man. Thank you. So one of the bands that Darren mentioned there in the interview we've just done was the Shankill Road Defenders. I'm delighted to be joined by Davy Thompson from that band to talk a wee bit about some of his experience in being involved with Beyond Skin. Davy, welcome along to Late Night with me at the Parade. Great to have you here. Yep. We've already heard a wee bit from Darren earlier on there, just in terms of how you have been involved in. But what was it like whenever you were approached initially to get involved in one of these projects?
Scary.
Right. Okay.
Apprehension. What we're getting ourselves in here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but it was again, it was all risk. And like I said, Darren was coming to me and giving me an idea. And I'm taking it all in. I'm saying this is going to be great, but then I've got to go back to the band and sell this idea to them, And it's doing things that are outside your comfort zone. It's a big if, But we got there in the end. And
yeah. And how did the band respond whenever you came to them with the idea? Because I know whenever I did a thing with a band and I went with them with the idea, I got looked at as if I had 3 heads. So
yeah. Well, I'm sort of quite lucky that way. We've got sort of boys that sort of put a lot of trust in me, and you had the odd one or two, but once you got them on, the Shankill Road Defenders are sort of a band that you bring in something, well, that's terrible, that's brutal, then 10 minutes later, well, that's brilliant, that's fantastic, So they eventually all go on board.
Dead on. And what were some of the things that you got involved with? Because you did something before you did the culture night thing, didn't you?
We had a group came to us, and they asked us to do this thing called The Voice. Which was I think it was a pre-war song that, was it Jim Farman?
John Farman.
John Farman brought it out. So we got involved in that, and the idea was we were going to play this and play it in different venues and everything. But we were fortunate enough to have John Higgins along with us, and John done the arrangement for it. We got it all made up. But we then had the pleasure of meeting Darren's musicians, from the Beyond Skins. And that went all right. We done a lot of rehearsals with them. They come up to the band, but I personally found myself, sort of drawn to Darren. He was a genuine fella. He was, he was supplying the musicians for, there was boys for Iran and Slovakia and Slovenia, you name it, they were there. Nigeria, I think, even if I couldn't really remember. But Darren supplied the musicians. But I sort of felt myself like drawing myself towards Darren. He had some great ideas. He was a genuine fella, and he seemed to be doing a lot of good work.
And what are your recollections of Culture Night then?
Well, Culture Night, even we get offered Culture Night, and I'm saying, what you want a band called the Shankill Road Defenders sitting in the middle of the Belfast City Centre on a Friday night? Are you mad? That's not going to work, that's just going to be a disaster. But the more and more we thought about it, and Darren explained it, he says, well, the loyalist culture, it's never represented there. This is a great chance for you to put your culture on the map. I said, well, we'll go for it, but it was scary, you were coming down with your band uniform with big coats over you, and with the bass drum, what we're going to do with it, let's get the band's name on it, and, but end up, the bus stopped as near to where we were playing as possible. We all got off, we'll get in the tent, we get set up, we done the job, which was brilliant. Right out the door, no hanging about, on the bus and away up the road again.
Right, okay.
Job done.
Right.
That's as simple as that.
Brilliant. And what was some of the feedback that you got from in regards
to the
performance?
The feedback was great, I must admit, and the crowd sort of I says, we're either going to get people throwing bottles at us here, or they maybe even enjoy it, but I hope that it went the better way, and we got a right big crowd, and it was a marvellous experience, it definitely was.
And what other things outside of so you've done? Are you still doing stuff with Beyond Skin, or have you kind of?
Well, I keep in touch with Darren, and not as much now as in the. Again, it's all I would say it's all funding and stuff. Same as yourself, it takes a lot of money to do these things and keep things going. So we've done a few things, but certainly working with Darren's opened a lot of doors up for the Shankill Road Defenders and the culture that we represent.
Yeah. I was just about to ask that question there. I said, what would you say the band's got out of this interaction?
I think what we got out of it was, that we were showing, the loyalist bands loyalist marching bands are demonised, So this was a great chance for us to show the public that we're not just all about marching down the streets and playing our flutes. We can do other things. We're highly skilled musicians. You know, so this, I mean, we could play out the box, we can play out with other musicians, you know, and we're not sectarian, we're not racist. That was my main goal, to portray that image.
Yeah, and I think that that's definitely come across in regards to any of the events that I've been involved in, or any events that I've seen bands be involved in terms of the work that Darren's been doing. You know, that it does seem to open up people's eyes to, hey, musicians, this is, first and foremost, musicians, regardless of whatever political trappings there may be, they're first and foremost that they're musicians, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, you know. And I suppose for me, it's also opened up a whole pile of other things for me. I think I did an event recently with Darren where I was playing guitar with one of an Afghan musician at an event and stuff, you know what I mean? And it's like kind of going, I would never have ever probably had that opportunity unless I'd had the relationship with Darren, and Darren had taken the risk to develop relationships with us. So, Davey, thanks very much, man, for coming in and sharing a wee bit about the work of the band. And I hope you get involved in some other stuff in the future.
Absolutely.
You know,
Thank you.
But great, thank you.
Yep.
So folks, that's it. We've come to the end of our second episode. Hope you've enjoyed the guest. Hope you've enjoyed some of the video clips that we've been able to share with you. Just want to take this moment to say and wish everyone a very happy Christmas. I know when this episode goes out, the big day won't be that far away. I just want to make sure I do a wee plug for one of my friends here. They've got a brand new CD out, the Ulster Grenadiers, from their trip to the battlefields over at the Somme. Their brand new CD available from Sandy Road Marching Supplies. Make sure you check it out. It's absolutely fantastic. Great stocking filler. But until the next episode, look after yourselves and take it easy.